Scott here again on Flip That Script. Today, to talk about going no contact with toxic, bullying, abusive, narcissistic family members, one or more family member. Going no contact is, of course, a very big and life-changing decision. If you read about the stories and experiences of people that have gone no contact with toxic, abusive family members, you will find and read, or on YouTube here, that many consider it to have been one of the best decisions they've made in their life. This doesn't mean that it's easy, and it doesn't mean that it still might have a stigma of being somewhat controversial. Going no contact is laying the ultimate boundary with family members. Should you decide to go this route, upon reflection, educating yourself, and thinking about the pluses and minuses, consider that anything bad that you want to think about it is quite honestly a reflection not of you, but of the behavior of your family members that has perhaps given you no other viable and reasonable way of keeping your self-respect, your self-esteem, and your peace of mind. In normal, healthy relationships, the relationships themselves can be maintained while keeping those important aspects of your own well-being intact. Toxic and abusive family members, depending on kind of how high they are on the narcissistic spectrum, or even if it's some other kind of issue or cluster B disorder, it may be impossible for you maintaining your peace of mind and your self-respect and continuing to have contact with them may sadly be mutually exclusive things. Therefore, consider that it's really the behavior of your very difficult family members that puts you in a position that you really may have no other healthy choice. Having contact with and dealing with family members who are toxic and abusive is a very difficult and painful experience. Towards the beginning of this series, when I went into what the traits are of toxic people, it's really crazy making, because essentially they behave in ways that are really subpar and actually quite contradictory at times as far as being the behaviors of people that are professing to just want the best for you and that love you. It's often completely at odds with that and the complete opposite. The other thing to keep in mind is, while this might end up being a difficult decision, that it might be most advisable to make in order for you to truly heal and do whatever kind of inner work that you need to do to help recover from the impact of what may have been decades of abuse. The important thing to keep in mind is that it isn't doing it, making this decision, and then implementing it and moving forward with it that heals you. Like when I talked about low contact, it's just giving yourself an environment that is free from further abuse and its harmful effects. It's just being in an environment that's free from that will allow you to work on your healing without having that sabotaged by being exposed to further toxic behavior and then needing to recover from that and being further triggered, etc., etc. So, going no contact will definitely bring up a whole host of feelings. It can, of course, be extremely liberating and empowering, but at the same time, it will also bring up grief, I didn't experience guilt, but I do understand that it's very common. At the same time, it's a very rational decision, and I think that's kind of what I've focused on, and I guess that's what's kept me from experiencing guilt, but I don't judge the fact that many people may feel guilt. It's certainly understandable, especially because of what we've been conditioned to believe about family. One interesting thing that I came across, and that you may have or maybe will in the future besides me mentioning it here, is that the long-held notion and kind of quote that toxic family members may use to kind of guilt trip you, that blood is thicker than water, interestingly, actually means the opposite. The reason being, the full quote from the Bible is that the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. So it actually means the blood of the covenant, such as you might have very dear friends that you consider ride or die. They're your bros, your sisters for life. It's actually saying that that's stronger than any commitment or obligation you might have to family, people that are related to you. Because what the quote is saying is that bond, that loyalty, that reciprocity that exists in covenants, meaning when people make an agreement, that they are there for you and vice versa, and you really mean it, literally trumps just being genetically related. Pretty funny and ironic that the actual biblical quote that toxic family members will use to try to guilt trip you actually means that the way that you're starting to look at it or have decided is really the way that it is, what I just described, is actually what it's saying. Another thing that's interesting that you'll find if you watch the Royal We channel, which I highly recommend, Jesus Christ himself in an instance in the Gospels was saying that his apostles and his followers and those that he was trying to teach and reach with his message were his family. Because there's a time when someone comes and says that his brother and his mother are looking for him when he's out fulfilling his mission. And he said, "Who is my mother? Who is my brother?" And he pointed to his disciples and those that were listening to his parables and so forth, and said that they were. So, the thing to think about in the context of all this, with that quote, and about what Jesus said also, is, are you really committed to and have an obligation to stay in connection with people who should have your back, but unfortunately, in many ways, have proven time and time again that they're actually against you? I'd say no. If your contact with family members brings nothing but heartache, chaos, drama, stress, they criticize you too much, they cross your boundaries, they get over involved with or judgmental or give unsolicited advice, always need to one-up you, never apologize for their behavior, and it actually just gets worse if and when you get to the point, if you have, as in the previous video I said, it's up to you kind of how you communicate that you have concerns, and if you do, and in how much detail. But the bottom line is, people that are like this, and they have to be related to somebody, and if you're watching me, they're probably in your immediate family, like they are for me. They don't apologize. They refuse to be accountable. They refuse to see your point of view. And they're in complete denial about, or don't care about, the way that they impact you. It might just be a poor investment of your time and energy to continue to try to make a relationship work that doesn't. What I experienced, and what's kind of universal about all this stuff, is that the toxic, abusive people feel entitled to act however they want, but they still feel entitled to have a connection with you. And it's a one-way relationship. There's no room for you in the relationship. There's nothing rewarding about the relationship. Keep in mind, there is definitely a difference between being a narcissist and having healthy self-interest. Relationships are supposed to be rewarding. Having contact with people should create a feeling of connection. You should feel good after you've spoken to somebody who you consider a friend or who is supposed to be family. It's supposed to be rewarding. There's supposed to be a payoff, and it just might be a really bad investment where you need to cut your losses. As difficult as it might be to make this decision, I very strongly encourage you to consider it. I know in my own life, it's been one of the most difficult decisions I've made, even though on a certain level it's like a no-brainer. And it's been one of the best decisions, sadly, that I've ever made in my life.